Who loves orange?
Latias. True Inferno loves Latias.
Is it true?
Mm-hmm. I do. Ooh. Alright, ladies and gentlemen of the YouTube citizens, y'all know who this is. This is your boy True Inferno. Today's day is Wednesday, February the 20th. So, we got a lot to talk about here today. So, as you know, today is my PvP tournament, or was my PvP tournament. So, I came back from that. So, the meat of this video will be about that. But first, we got some breaking news that we need to talk about. So, yes, Shiny Latias is coming starting this Friday. Yes, so let's get straight into it. Trainers, are you ready for a challenge? From Friday, February 20th, 2nd to Monday, February 25th, there will be a special raid weekend. The legendary Pokemon Latias will be available in raid battles. Take a look at the details below. So basically, this will go on starting this Friday at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, all the way up to Monday, February the 25th, ending at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So let's take a look at the features. It's not much really. The legendary Pokemon Latias will be joining raid battles. If you're lucky, you may encounter a Shiny Latias. Looking for Latios? Fear not, trainer. Latios will appear during its own special raid weekend at a later date. Do you have what it takes to take on Latias? Get ready to go, trainer, and best of luck. Stay safe and happy exploring. So, yeah. Shiny Latias is coming starting this Friday, really tomorrow when you're watching this video. And it's funny how they basically geared a raid weekend towards Shiny Latias. So I'm thinking that the Shiny rate will be a tad bit high because of the fact that they are pointing out Shiny Latias is in the game now. And the reason why I mentioned that whole Keenan and Kel skit at the beginning, because it's orange. Like Shiny Latias is flat out orange and white. It looks like a what is it, like a cream soda, or cream orange soda, something like that type of flavor. That's how it looks. Alright, so that take care of that bit of news. Now let's get on to the PvP match. So again, I had a Twilight Cup tournament today. I've been training for it, I've been studying up for it, and today was the day. So I just came home from that and grinding nearby, but I just came home from the PvP tournament. So I'm gonna give you guys the play-by-play over the entire tournament, let you know what I did wrong, and yeah, I'm not gonna reveal much, but yeah, that's all I'm gonna do. So enjoy the play-by-play, and I'll see you guys in a bit. All right, so this is actually the first match of the night. So actually, this was the tournament that didn't count. So I look at my opponent lineup, and I instantly see the Toxicroak, the Venomoth, the Venusaur, and the Golbat. So I was not using my Toxicroak in here, and I decided to go with that first lineup, Quillfish, Venomoth, and the Alolan Ninetales. So I led off with the Quillfish, which is the best strategy. He led off with the Azumarill, which is not a bad play, but the problem was for him was my Quillfish had that Sludge move, which is effective against Azumarill. So he used his move first. I whipped out the shield first. So he used Play Rough, and then I used our Slug Ray rather, and he didn't use a shield, and it was super effective, knocked him out instantly. He brought out the Venomoth. I was not determined to switch, and then I whipped out the Aqua Tail here, and he used the shield there. So now he was down to one shield, as were I. He knocked out my Quillfish here. So then I brought out my Ninetales here because Ice was affected against it. He used the Silver Red, which I blocked, you know, just for the heck of it. And I was using Ice attack moves here. Then I whipped out the Side Shock actually, and that knocked out the Venomoth, which was super effective against it. No, it did not knock it out, my bad. He used another Silver Red. I had no shields obviously, but it wasn't effective. And then I used more Ice attack moves, and then I got off another Side Shock here and knocked out his Venomoth right there, and he whipped out the Toxicroak. So then I whipped out after my Venomoth. I whipped out my Venomoth rather after my Ninetales got knocked out. So this was obviously an easy matchup for me. So I got the first match here. So now we're gonna go to the second match against this individual right here after I picked up my rewards right here. And at this point, I was determined, like I was trying to figure out, should I roll with the first squad or the second squad? I ended up going with the first squad because I didn't think he would do anything that would make me change my squad. And here we go, rematch of the lead off Pokemon here. Azumarill gets the Quillfish, and I got off my Aqua Tail first. So I wanted to make him use his shields, and that's exactly what happened. He used his shield first, And then he whipped out his charge move. I didn't use a shield. He used play rough, and my Qwilfish withstood the damage. So the battle continued. And at this point, I was like, okay, time for the slug rave. And I used it, and again, it was super effective, but he got the shield at that time. So I'm like, okay, now I'm gonna use my shield, and he used ice beam this time. All right, so now I got 1 shield, he got 0, and I was like, okay, I need to get the slug ray off. But then I was like, no, let's get the Aqua Tail because my Pokemon about to die. So I want to use the charge move. So yeah, there it is right there. My Pokemon now about to kick the bucket because of the ice beam. And then I brought out the Venomoth, and at this point, it was an interesting matchup here because I was in the whole 2 Pokemon to 1. But I held my own here and managed to knock off his Azumarill with the Silver Wind right here, even though it was not effective. But I knocked it off, and I got the boost. So I went up against the Skuntank, which is not a good matchup for the Venomoth, but because of that boost, I was able to withstand just about anything the Skuntank used, and that's including the Flamethrower, even though I whipped out the shield there. So now I used out the Psychic, and it wasn't effective, but it still knocked him out. And now, obviously, the Toxic Croak, we all know what the outcome is here. So I won this matchup, but then we found out that the guy who organized the tournament decided to cancel because there was one more person that was coming. So if you were to look at that tournament page, it would say that I'm the champion, which is pretty funny. Alright, so now we move on to the actual tournament, and my opponent had the Nidoqueen, which is very interesting, along with the Qwilfish and the Umbreon, which was interesting. So I'm like, okay, my opponent may use the Qwilfish first, so I'm gonna go with my other lineup, which is Azumarill, Venomoth, and the Alolan Ninetales. And yep, that's what happened. The Qwilfish came out first. Now keep in mind, my opponent doesn't really play Pokemon Go like that. And keep in mind, my opponent lineup, there was no Venomoth in her lineup, so I want to point that out there as well. So the battle is on. It was Azumarill against the Qwilfish, reverse role from my last matchup. But again, I had the advantage because, you know, I had a bit of a knowledge on my side and know what to do with things of that nature. So, but it was a pretty even match at this point. It was a pretty even match. So then I used the Ice Beam here. Not very effective against her Qwilfish, but it did do some damage. And then she used Aqua Tail, which did nothing at all against my Azumarill since it is a water type Pokemon. And I decided not to use a charge move because her Pokemon about to die. And apparently she didn't have Sludge Bomb or Sludge Ray, whatever. So I knocked it out. Here comes the Golbat. So now I had the Ice Beam ready to go. Bam, super effective against her Golbat. And I had another Ice Beam ready to go. And I believe she used, no, she did not use a shield. So she let that die. Here comes the Nidoqueen now. So we both have a shield each at this point. I got another Ice Beam off, ready to go. And she now used the shield because it was super effective against it. And then I was like, okay, I'm gonna let my Azumarill die. She used the Slug Ray, and that was not the only surprise she had for me. So I brought out the Skuntank, and okay, I was like, I want the Slug Ray. She used a Crake, so her Nidoking had 2 charge moves, which is very good actually. So then I used the Sludge Bomb, which was not effective, but then my Quick Attack moves finished it off, and I won the first match, obviously. So yeah, despite her not playing Pokemon Go like that, you know, that was a very good match from her part. Now here's where things get interesting. So we got an interesting scenario right here, Azumarill against Azumarill. So now it's all about, okay, who can use the shields good, the right moves and things of that nature. So in my case, I knew that Play Rough would be more effective against itself as opposed to Ice Beam. So that's what I was using here. I was using Play Rough, and we both used, no, she used her shield. I took her hit head on, and then she used her charge attack again, which was Play Rough this time. And then I used my Play Rough. So there you go with that. And I believe I had my Azumarill have high V's in her. That's why I was able to do a slightly more damage. So she used her move again, and which was Ice Beam this time. Again, not effective. And I took the attack head on, saving up my shields. I used Play Rough on her. So at this point, I'm like, okay, I'm feeling pretty good about it. And she got one more charge attack, and this time I was like, okay, I'm gonna use the shield because I wanted to keep my Azumarill out because her Pokemon about to die. I got charge attacks ready to go. And then here's where things get interesting. She brought that out, and I was like, throughout the whole match, I'm like, wait a minute, I don't recall that being in her party when she registered. And when this match was over, I had to look and see what were her 6 registered Pokemon were, and Venomoth was not a part of that 6, as you can see right there. That's her 6 right there. There was no Venomoth in there. If I would have saw that, then I would have definitely been like, yeah, I'm not using Toxic Croak. I didn't use Toxic Croak at all in this match, but if I would have saw that Venomoth, I definitely wouldn't have used it. But yeah, I was like, oh snap, she used a different Pokemon. But then again, I was like, okay, she's not all up on Pokemon Go, so she may not be all up on the rules of this tournament. So I let it slide, and I won the second match. So I didn't really complain at all about this, or report anything like that, because I won the second match. So there was no point of reporting or complaining anything like that. So I just said whatever and moved on. All right, so this was my third match of the night, the second round of this tournament right here. And I went with that lineup of Krillfish, Venomoth, and Alolan Ninetales because of his lineup. Even though he had Krillfish in his lineup, I figured, what the heck. He had Venusaur, Skuntank, Toxicroak, Driploon, and Golbat. So as I expected, it was a Krillfish matchup right here. So it was a mirror matchup. So in this case, he used his Aqua Tail, and I did not shield. So I used my Aqua Tail, and he did not shield here. And then the second time around, he got his Aqua Tail off first, and this time I did shield. So I used my shield first, and then I got my Aqua Tail off next, and then he did shield. So it was literally a mirror match. But then this right here is where things became different. I got my Aqua Tail off first, and he did not shield, and he let his Krillfish kick the bucket. And then he brought in his Toxicroak. So in his Toxicroak finished off my Krillfish, but I did do some damage. Here comes the Venomoth to finish off his Toxicroak, but he did get off a move off right before his Toxicroak kicked the bucket. It was Mud Bomb. I did not shield, so I was like, okay, whatever. And his Toxicroak kicked the bucket, and now it's go back against my Venomoth. We both got a shield, and I used Side Shock on it, and he gonna shield right here since that's his last Pokemon, which makes sense. And he used his quick attack move, which was Air Cutter. I did not shield. I just said whatever. I got one Pokemon in the shield left, and he got half a Pokemon left, and mine was Alolan Ninetales, was very effective. Used that Ice Beam, and boom, that was it. And I still had my shield left, so that was pretty cool if I do say so myself. So yeah, there you go with that. Now let's move on to the next match here. So I went with Azumarill, Venomoth, and the Alolan Ninetales in this matchup. Decided not to make any changes yet because nothing was broken, so why try to fix it, right? So here we go. We're about to go into this matchup right here. I went with Azumarill, think it's gonna be Krillfish, but no, it was the shiny Venusaur right here. So this was an interesting matchup rather, because even though because of that right there, Ice Beam. I used Ice Beam on his Venusaur, forced him to use the shield. I had to use the shield because he had Frenzy Plant. So we were very effective against each other. So I tried to get off my Ice Beam off first. I decided to shield because I had the Ice Beam ready to go, really. And I used it. And then he did not shield, but he had a little bit of health left. And he was able to use one more Frenzy Plant, knocking off my Azumarill. First, I brought in the Alolan Ninetales, knocked him out real quick. Then he brought in the Toxicroak. And then I used Side Shock on his Toxicroak after he used Mud Bomb, which did some damage. After I used Ice Beam, my bad. So yeah, there you go. Bam, knocked him out right there. And then it was his go back against my two Pokemon, and he had a shield. So I used Ice Beam before my Alolan Ninetales kicked the bucket. He used his shield and then knocked out my Alolan Ninetales. Then I had the Venomoth, and I got no shield. He used Shadow Ball, we did some damage, but luckily I had Silverwind, and I tried to use it, but my Pokemon knocked his out first. And that was basically the match of the round, and I was still undefeated in this tournament. Alright, so this was the fourth match of the tournament for me, and my opponent had Drapion, Houndscrow, which he did not use, Crobat, Azumarill, Toxicroak, and Venusaur. So I was like, I'm not using the Toxicroak here. So I went with Krillfish, Skuntank, and the Alolan Ninetales here. I was not using Toxicroak here because my opponent had two Pokemon that could take it out. So Toxicroak against Krillfish, interesting matchup right here. So here we go. And this was even right here for the most part. And at this point, I'll try to use the Aqua Tail to do as much damage as I can. I forgot to shield there like an idiot. And I used Aqua Tail right there. He used a shield, and he knocked out my Krillfish. I'm like, okay, I'm just down two shields to down a Pokemon, but I got two shields to him one. I brought out the Alolan Ninetales. I used a shield immediately when he used his charge attack, and I knocked out his Toxicroak, and I had charge attacks ready to go. He brought out the Drapion. I used the Ice Beam right here, and he blocked it with his shield. That was his last shield. I had one left. And look, I had Side Shock ready to go as well, which did little damage, but I was able to build my charge attack up after he got his Sledge Bomb off. I shielded it, and then I used Ice Beam against his Drapion right here. Bam, his Drapion went down, and then he had one Pokemon left to me too, and it was a Azumarill, and he knocked out my Alolan Ninetales, so I had the Skunk Tank here, and I tried to get the Sludge Bomb off. He got his Play Buff off right here. We did some damage, and then I got off the Sludge Bomb right here. He had no shields, and bam, knocked out his Azumarill right there, and that was it for that match. So I was still undefeated at this point in time. All right, so now we're gonna move on to the next round, or the next match, excuse me. And I was like, okay, I'm gonna go with Azumarill, Venomoth, and the Alolan Ninetales right here. So did another switch up right here as I was drinking my latte from Flatbay rather, from Big Beast. I did not dare right there, by the way. So I went with Azumarill against Toxicroak right here. Interesting matchup right there. And you know, I was just trying to be as tanky as possible right here. He got his charge attack move first, so I used the shield, and he used Mud Bomb, and I managed to use Ice Beam against his Toxicroak, and he used his shield, so it was like down one shields apiece for both of us. I tried to get the Ice Beam off first. I was like, okay, I'm not going to shield. He used Sludge Bomb, knocked me out, so he kind of played me there a little bit. Brought in the Venomoth, knocked him out with relative ease. So we were still even. He brought out the Crobat, and I was like, okay, Silver Wind, let me get the boost. And he used his second shield, and I'll try to get the Silver Wind off again, but his Crobat defeated my Venomoth. So I brought out the Alolan Ninetales and used my last shield, and I knocked out his Crobat right there. And then he brought out his Drapion, and I should have used but no, Ice Beam was good here. He just had a little bit of health left, and then I tried to get the Ice Beam up again, or at least use the Side Shock. But he got his move off, which was Sledge Bomb, knocking out my Alolan Ninetales. That was my first loss of the night, but we had one more match to go before it was ultimately decided. So I went Whiskey here, and I was kind of desperate, so I was like, okay, I'm gonna take out the Venomoth and put in the Toxicroak. That's what I did here. No, my bad. I kept the Venomoth in, and I took out the Azumarill rather. So I went with Venomoth, the Toxicroak, and the Alolan Ninetales right here. I got kind of desperate, I will admit, but you know, I felt it was necessary. I felt like I needed the Toxicroak here, and he led with Drapion, so this was going to be an interesting matchup. All right, so I felt like it was even at this point, and I got off my Silver Wind first because again, I try to get that boost, which would put the edge in my favor, and he got his charge attack off next, so I had to use the shield. So we both used our shields there, so we were down a shield apiece. And again, I was trying to get that Silver Wind off first. I did not use the shield here against his Crunch. Did some damage, and then I used Silver Wind here. And if he did use a shield, cool. If he don't, then okay, that's cool too. He did use a shield, so now I have a shield advantage against him. He go to use Crunch. I was like, okay, I'm done with this Venomoth. He got knocked out. Brought in the Toxicroak, knocked out his Drapion with ease. And then he brought out the Crobat, and I had a Sledge Bomb ready to go. So I used it, and then I instantly switched. He did not, well, he couldn't use the shield. I brought out the Alolan Ninetales, and his Crobat had a charge attack ready to go. I brought out the shield. He used Sledge Bomb, which would have been super effective to get my Alolan Ninetales. So I whipped out the Side Shock, and I knocked out his Crobat. No, he switched to the Toxicroak, knocked that out. Then he brought in the Crobat. I had another charge attack ready to go, but I didn't need it because I knocked him out with ease. Won that match, won that round, so everything was good. I was mostly undefeated there. All right, so this was the last match of the night, and if I would have won this one, I would win a championship. So we got Tentacruel here, which was ironic. I was thinking of using that, and he saw me using Alolan Ninetales because he was thinking of using that. So I went with Quillfish, Venomoth, and the Alolan Ninetales here, and he brought out the Golbat first, so that was interesting. So I was like, okay, it's an even match so far. And I tried to get my move off first, but he got his off first. Did the Ominous Wind, so I shielded it. I thought it was going to be something else. Got out the Aqua Tail, and he blocked that as well. So we was both down a shield, and it was still even. He got his move off first. I did not use a shield against his Ominous Wind, and I tried to use the Aqua Tail, but it did not work. Or I tried to save up for Sledge Bomb. So I brought out the Alolan Ninetales and tried to knock out his Golbat had to use up my shield against his Poison Fang, would have done some damage. Knocked out his Golbat. So I was down a Pokemon in the shield basically. And he brought out the Azumarill. So I used the Side Shock on it. And he used up his last shield. And then I got another Side Shock ready to go because the Ice Beam was not going to do nothing against that thing. And apparently the Side Shock did nothing against it either. He used Play Rough, but did a lot of damage. And I used Side Shock again, try to do some damage, and not to my liking. So I brought out the Venomoth, my last Pokemon. He had a Charge Attack ready to go. He used Play Rough. It did some damage. So I was like, okay, I gotta do some damage here. So I used Silph Road, try to get the boost. See if I can use that in my favor, and knocked out his Azumarill. He brought out the Tentacruel, which is a good closer. And I used the Cimmerid trying to get the boost one more time, whether it was attack or defense. It was close. He got his Charge Attack move off. So I was like, okay, this is over. I lost this match right here. So GG's to my opponent right here. So now for my second match, I went with a unique lineup for me. I took out the Venomoth, if memory serves me correctly. And I went with Skuntank after thinking about it and drinking some more of that Flappe rather. What did I say? Latte? Flappe? You know, whatever I had. I went with Skuntank, Alolan Ninetales, and the Azumarill. Because I needed Azumarill as a closer because it was tanky, just like the Tentacruel. And Skuntank went up against Venusaur. So this was interesting right here because of what happened. So obviously, you know, we both going at it. It was both pretty even. I got my crunch off first, so I used it. And he used the shield. And then I put my shield up, but he used Sludge Bomb. So then I got crunch off first again. And he used another shield. So now he was down the shield. So I'm like, okay, I'm not going to use the shield here. Thinking it's going to be Sludge Bomb. Nope, Solar Beam. Knocked my Pokemon instantly. So I brought out the Alolan Ninetales. And I tried to knock him out, but he got a Charge Attack off, which was Sludge Wave, or Sludge Bomb rather. So I used my shield, and then I knocked him out. So this is where I made the mistake right here. I should have used Side Shock instead of Ice Beam, but I rushed it because I wasn't sure what it was going to bring out. I wanted to get a Charge Attack move off instantly. He got a Charge Attack move off right there, and that knocked out my Alolan Ninetales. So now I was in the hole, no shield. It was a one-on-one scenario. Actually, we both knocked each other out right there, and then it was Azumarill against the Tentacruel, and I was in trouble, so I tried to use Ice Beam. It didn't do much. I probably should use Play Rough right there, even though it didn't matter. I could use Sludge Wave. Bam, it was over, and I ended up losing that match in that round. So I lost 3 matches that night. All right, so here was the final results of the tournament. Pal or Polly 313 won. If you look at the tiebreaker, so he got 1 tiebreaker point ahead of me. I finished second, and if I would have beat Pal 313 clean and still would have lost that last match the way I did, I believe I probably would have won, or Cool Blue Dory would have won. Who knows? But yeah. All right, so that's going to do it for another thrilling episode of Pokemon Go. And as you saw at the end there, I came this close from winning it all. Because of the tiebreaker, I settled for second place. But it was like, I guess, the original tournament, quote unquote, where I won that one, which is pretty funny. And here's the thing. I'm not sure about this, but I did remember reading this when I was covering the Twilight Cup way back when it was announced. And that is this. You cannot, you can't take part in more than one Twilight Cup tournament, but your first one will count towards the global leaderboard only. So even though I won, you could say technically it was canceled, but I think in the record book, it will say that I won that tournament, and that will go towards the leaderboard. Whereas this one may probably not. So, which kind of sucks because the one that I won that was canceled, I only got 1 point, while this one I got like 3 points. So we'll see how that goes. I don't know what will happen with that, but we'll see how it goes when the main leaderboard drops. And I gotta remember how that do in the Boulder Cup in terms of points and things of that nature, and see if they did calculate the second one that I took part in today. But yeah, it was very close. I'm really proud of myself because, if it wasn't for a few mental mistakes that I made in that last battle, I could have won the whole thing. I was really good. I felt really good about it, and I could have won the whole thing. The Tempest Cup is next. I have not looked into it yet. It starts next month, so I will be more likely gearing towards that when March comes around. So that's going to do it for this video. So remember, Shiny Latias will be in the game starting Friday. So yes, you can be out raiding for Shiny Latias starting this Friday at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time until this Monday at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And you know, don't forget the other Pokemon Pacquiao is still in the game as a raid boss as well. That will be there until the 28th. So we're talking next week, like next Thursday actually. So that's gonna do it for this episode of Pokemon Go. So with that said, y'all know who this is. This is your boy, the new Jay Gatsby, aka the new Stephen A. Smith, saying peace out, y'all, and I'll see y'all next time. Yeah.
Is it true?
Mm-hmm. I do. Ooh. After you subscribe to the channel, make sure you click the bell icon so you never miss a new video or a live stream ever again. Thanks, guys.
Living in a world where tomorrow's never promised. Last of a dying breed, rather find honest. Got me feeling like an onyx. My heart was getting hard till I looked to the sky. Say I'ma leave it to God, then embark on this path. Journey of a lifetime. Everybody rhyme, but not a lot I co-sign. Define the mind's capability.